And welcome back to this part two of this lab demonstration where we're just picking up right where we left off. So now that we are already here, we'll demonstrate Active Directory domain services, policies, group policy, and checking user identities in this new environment. Now, for this lab portion on group policies, I will be utilizing two virtual machines. I have my Active Directory Domain Services Server 2016, and I'll have a client computer 10A, which we will use to join the domain that we created previously. So here we are in our Active Directory Domain Services, and we know that previously for all of our user management exercises, we would use the computer management console. So let me bring that up. And that here. And in previous videos, we would go straight to our local users and groups option here on the left side. So when we open this up, now we can see that we actually don't have that option in our menu here anymore. And the reason for that is because when you install Active Directory on your server OS, the local users and groups folder actually gets redirected from your computer management console to an Active Directory users and computers. And to get to that, let me close this down. We'll actually go to Tools here, and you have your Active Directory users and computers option. So we'll select that. And this here, we can see our domain here, and then we get down to our users. So here we have our administrative account, we have our guest account, and then we have our default account. So these are the three accounts we have available, and here you'll see our two different types of groups. One related with our Active Directory services, and then one related with the built-in folder. And this is something I had gone into some detail with in a previous video where we talked about our local security policy and group. So if you'd like to check out that video, there's some more information on that. But this here just mainly demonstrates the migration of our users and groups from our computer management console when we add the Active Directory domain services. And when our machine becomes a domain controller, we get all these different kinds of user administration options available to us. So to get to this option, you either have the tool option or the shortcut for this is you go to your run and it's dsa.msc. I just go to and you can see it's essentially the same thing here. So I'll just close that. Now here inside of our Active Directory, we're going to go ahead and build some departments for our organization. Departments here will be referred to as OUs or organizational units. An OU is a container where you install or configure user accounts. So here I'm going to right click on my domain name. We will go to new, and then we have organizational unit. So this opens up this new object window screen here. And for our names, we're just going to be setting up basically some new departments. So for the first one here, I'm going to go with sales. We'll select OK. And you can see our sales. And I'm going to make a few different departments here. So we're going to make sales, marketing, accounts, and HR. So let me just do the rest here. Okay. So we've created multiple domain accounts, and we do this for the purpose of isolating users, setting limited administrative boundaries, or for setting specific departments within an organization. We have our different departments here with different users and nature of business dependent on their requirements for their job roles. So here I'm going to go ahead and go into accounts first. And we're going to right click and create a new user in our accounts. So we will go to new user. Bring this over to the middle here. Now, when we create a new user in Active Directory environment, we'll have a more detailed form here to submit, but we're going to keep this simple for our demo purposes here. And I'm just going to simply set my username for accounts as A1 and login name as well. We'll hit A1. I'm going to hit next. And then we see here our account options, which if you remember from our local work group environment demos, this is pretty much the same selections. You'll notice these options are pretty common across the board. So we're going to set our password here. I'm going to remove this, change password to next login. And for our password here, it does need to be a 7-character minimum, but it has to be complex as well. And then before I move on with that, let's just confirm why we need to use a complex password here. So I'm going to go to my run. We'll go to our security policy here. Found that. Account policies. I'll bring up my password policy. And we see in our security settings and default policy. So here we can see right away that our Active Directory password policies are much more stringent than when we were in our local work group environment, which is a good thing. The more secure you can make your environment, the better. Now, let's say if we want to change our minimum password policy from 7 characters to 9, if I go into the minimum password link, it actually does not allow me to change it here. You can see that this is all grayed out. So we're unable to change it here because here it simply shows us what the current policy is. If we want to modify these things, we actually have to modify the entire group policy. To make those changes, it affects everyone in the entire organization. So in a moment, we will go ahead and demonstrate that. But the main thing I wanted to show here was just the default password policy for creating new users. So I'm going to close this. We'll close that. And we'll select next. And just verifying here that we're going to make this new user A1. I'm going to finish. And then we can see our new user there in our accounts OU. So as I mentioned before, in order to change the default password policy, we have to go into our group policies. So to get there, we have 2 options. You can either use the tools. Let me just minimize this. You can go to tools here and go to group policy management from the drop-down menu. Or you can run the short password of run gpmc.msc. But I'm just going to use the drop-down menu here. Pick this up. We're in our forest, our domains, mylabs.net. So here we see our domains. Inside our domains, we have our group policies. And I'm going to select group policy objects. Here I have my group policy object. Let me select that. So one thing to note is that all the group policies that we create will be stored in this folder. Here we can take and restore the back of our group policies. So wherever we configure or apply policy, it will be stored here. When we install Active Directory, by default, we have the 2 domain policies, which are the default domain controllers policy and then the default domain policy. Default domain policy applies to your entire domain, where default domain controller policies only applies on a specific domain controller. So clicking on group policy object, we see the 2 policies. We're going to select the default domain policy. Okay. And then we can see what policy to apply here. So I'm going to select settings, and this will give us the info about whatever policies we are configuring here. It's just generating the report. Go ahead and close. There we go. So now here it is showing us all. And so at the top here, default domain policy, you see the computer configuration enable, and then our user configure. So we have the two different policies, one for user configuration, one for computer configuration. Right now we have no policies for our user configuration, but under computer configurations, we can see all of our policy settings. At the top here, we see our password policies. Now let's take a quick look at our default domain controller policy. These options here. And here we see the more like of the permission related policies, which essentially tells us who does what. But I'm going to go back to my default domain policy, which is kind of where we'll spend more of our time here. And let's say that I want to assign a policy on my user that says their control panel will be disabled. For that, we need to create a new policy. So earlier we created the 4 new OUs, which were marketing, sales, HR, and accounts. And if you look closely, you can see that there's currently no group policy applied to any of these accounts here. So I'll go back to my accounts OU. And with this, we can verify this on our client computer. So we'll log in with our client 10A. We do have that logged in already. Let me just resume the machine here. And I'm just going to give this a little bit of time to refresh here. And so here we're going to check our connectivity from our client computer here to our domain controller. So I'm just going to bring up my run and command prompt. And before anything, let's just do a quick IP config check. 10.0.0.3 looks good. And then I'm going to ping our server 10.0.0.1 with enter. And it looks like we are getting the replies here, send receive for. So successful connectivity there with our server, we get the reply. So I'm going to close this down here. So when we join the domain from our client side here, we need to do two things. First thing is to enter the IP address of our domain controller into our preferred DNS, and then we have to join the domain. So first, I'm going to go back to my run, and we will do ncpa.cpl. We're going to go to our network configurations here. Right-click properties. We're going to go to our IPv4 settings. And like I mentioned here, we need to enter our preferred DNS as the IP of our server 10.0.0.1. Okay. We'll close this. I will close this window. And now we need to change our client computer from our work group to the domain. And for that, we're going to go back to our run. And here we're going to enter sysdm.cpl of our system properties. So here in our system properties, we can see that we're currently in this workgroup machine. I am going to select change. And we're currently a member of the workgroup, but we're going to join the domain at this point. And we're going to enter the domain name that we created in our Active Directory, which was the mylabs.net for me. And hit OK. And now it's going to ask us to enter the username and password of our domain name here. So like in a large enterprise type of environment, you would use like a IT help desk to get this information, but specific to our virtual environment here, we're just going to be entering our administrator username and password, which we do know. So for the username here, that will simply be administrator at mylabs.net with our password. Hit OK. We'll try that again. There we go. And then we get the welcome to mylabs.net domain. So I'm going to select OK. And it says you must restart your computer to apply these changes. Select OK. And then go ahead and close here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit restart now. And while that's restarting, I'll just pause the video here. And real quick, while my client computer is restarting, I just want to kind of show this real quick. So when we join the domain, switching over now to my server computer, I'm going to pull up my Active Directory users and computers again. And we can go to the computer folder, and here we'll actually be able to see whoever joins the domain. So when I select that, you can see that now our client 10A computer has joined the domain. So we're just waiting on that reboot for our client 10A, and then I'll resume the video here when I'm all logged back in. Okay, so with the computer rebooted, it does ask now who wants to sign in. Here we're going to go with the user we created in our domain environment for my labs, which was the A1 from our accounts department. But before logging in, let's go back to our departments we created earlier, and we're going to create one new user for each department. So I'll go back to my server here and computer management. And so as you remember, we have our A1 user already for accounts. I'm going to make one for sales, marketing, and HR. So I have all my accounts created now. We have our A1 user in accounts. I have an S1 user in sales, M1 user for marketing, and H1 user for my HR. So here we have all the user accounts. We have our client machine, and now we'll go ahead and start with the policy configuration. So here I'm going to run, and we will do gpmc.msc. And this is going to be our group policy management console. Bring this up. Just expand all this here. And we'll go to our accounts here. So here, now I'm going to right click on my accounts OU, and we get this first option here, create a GPO in this domain and link it here. So we'll select that. And now it asks us to set the name. So for best practices, you should set the name of the policy based on the activity you're going to perform behind it. So let's say we're going to go ahead and disable the control panel access for our user A1 in account. So the name of this policy is just simply going to be disable control panel. Okay. And then we see it pop up here in the corner one with our GPO disable control panel. Now I'm going to right click on my policy and we're going to edit. Now here we can see a new console pop up, which is our group policy management editor. Inside this editor, we can see that we have computer and user configurations with policies and preferences. So if you want to close or restrict anything on or related to your user profile or in your OS, we configure those policies in user configuration. So before I proceed here, we're going to jump back over the client computer and log in with our A1 account. User here. While this profile builds here, I'm just going to pause this while it logs in. Okay, so now I am logged into my user A1 for my accounts OU. For here, I'm going to go ahead to my run and I will type Control, Enter. And here you can see that we're able to access the control panel. Now, if I go to my search bar and I go to Control, select Control Panel, same thing, I'm able to open and access that with no problems. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and log off from this user and we're going to update the policy. Now, this will typically take anywhere from 30 minutes to sometimes 2 hours for policies to be applied, but we can take some steps to set it a little bit more quickly. So let me just sign off here. Let that sign out, and I'm going to jump back to my server computer. And now for our server computer here, under user configurations, we have policies. Under policies, we have this option here for administrative templates. Under these templates, we have user profile related folders. You have your control panel, desktop, network, shared folders. Let me just open this up a little bit. Start menu and taskbar, systems, Windows components. Here, we're going to go ahead and select our control panel. Now, whenever we apply or configure any policy inside of our group policy, it will ask us, do we want to perform this activity? When we say yes, we're enabling that service. And when we say no, we're disabling that service. So here we see prohibit access to control panel and PC settings, and it's currently not configured. So I'm going to double click on this policy, and then we get this pop-up window here. Now, if we want to restrict this activity for our user, what we need to do is select enable. I'm going to do that. Let me bring this up a little bit. We're going to hit apply and OK. So now you can see that the state here is changed to enable rather than not configured. Now I'm going to close all these consoles here. And we want this policy to actually update immediately or right now. So for that, I'm going to go to my run option and we are going to enter GP update. I'm going to hit enter and you'll see now that our policy is updating. And it shows computer policy update has completed successfully. So that's good. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the updates to the policies, that process can take up to a full 2 hours to complete. So what we're going to do to get that immediate update here, we're going to reboot our client machine so that we're able to verify this right away from our user A1 account. Let me go here. And I'll just go to my power options and we're going to restart. Okay, so we have rebooted and logged back in with our A1 user, and now we're going to attempt to access the control panel again, just like we did previously. So I'll hit run, there's control, hit enter, and then we get this restriction message. This operation has been canceled due to restrictions in effect on this computer. Please contact your system administrator. So now if I, same thing here, go to my search and type control, and attempt to access control panel here, we get the same restriction message. So there's a successful group policy update there. Now I'm going to try this same thing with a different user. So I'm going to pause here while I get logged in with my H1 user from HR. Okay, so I'm logged in now with my H1 user from HR, and let's try to access the control panel from this account. If I hit control, and you can see here we're able to access the control panel, no problem. Going from our search option here, and same thing, it brings it up, no problem for our H1 user. And so we're able to open the control panel from this different user account that's not associated with our accounts OU. So next we're going to go back to our server and go to our HROU, and we're configure a policy that disables the run command. Just refresh this here. And so from here, I'm going to go back to my group policy management console. We have our HR here. Now right click, we're going to create a GPO in this domain and link it here. For this domain name, we're going to go with disable run. Okay, see that it's open there. We're going to right click and edit this policy. Up again. User configuration policies. Go to our administrative templates. Now for the disabling one, we're going to go to our start menu and taskbar options. And we get a really long list here of all these different types of settings that you can go through. But the one that we are going to be searching for here is remove run menu from start menu. There we go. So double click that one. We're going to enable this, apply, and OK. And I'm going to go to my run. We're going to do another GP update. Enter. It's going to update our policy. Computer policy update has completed successfully. Now let me just close these down again. And once more, I'm going to go back to my client computer. We're going to reboot it and then sign in with our H1 user from HR. Okay, so now we've rebooted and I am signed back in with my HR user from, or my H1 user from HR. So let's try and open our run command here. So when I try, I get the restriction. Operation has been canceled due to restrictions in effect on this computer. Please contact your system administrator. And same thing here, if I go to type search and run, now it does come up. Let me select it. Then I get the restriction here. So another successful group policy update. So here we've learned that with the help of group policy, we can essentially control our user environment. You can add a combination of multiple policies to apply to specific OUs or one-on-one policies to apply on an individual basis. But at this point, that will conclude this demonstration of our account local security and group policies that we can set in a work group as well as an Active Directory domain environment. I hope you learned a lot of useful tips and tricks here. As always, you can go back and dive deeper into a lot of these different policies. As you saw from that list there, you have a huge amount of available policies to just kind of help you get a better understanding of all the different kinds of restrictions you can apply to different accounts. But that does bring us to the end of this demonstration, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks again for watching.